Joining me now is Scott Casselman, VP of Exploration at Rackla Metals. Great to see you again.
Yes, good to be here. Thanks for having me, Mark.
So we talked to Virik in late January, so we're going to advance the story here, at least you are.
Yeah.
So just to remind everybody, exploring the Tombstone Gold Belt. This is on the eastern part of the Yukon and western part of Northwest Territories, and you're looking for a quote-unquote huge system. So can you remind us of the strategy?
Yeah, we've been involved now for 2.5 years, getting back into the Yukon and looking for these reduced intrusion-related gold systems. We cast a big net and looked at, in total now, about 12 different properties. They all have certain elements of the criteria we would look for this type of deposit. And this year we focused in on one of our newer acquisitions called the Grad Property.
Right, and this came available from a First Nations group, and it was a long process, and your CEO is saying this is an outstanding target. It's going to be a big focus for next year.
Yeah, this particular land package was tied up in a land use planning process as part of the Saulteaux Dene First Nation Traditional Territory final agreement. So they went through that land use planning process, did mineral assessments of the area. The Northwest Territories Geological Survey did a lot of that mineral assessments, collecting stream and heavy mineral concentrate samples and mapping, and identified this particular region as having high mineral potential. But they had to complete the land use planning process and then release the land back to the exploration sector. That happened in late June, early July, and we were on the ground a week later. What our crews saw from that, as soon as they set their feet on the ground, was pretty amazing. They came back to camp, their eyes were wide open and very exciting. So we immediately went about staking a couple of claim packages there the following week.
Oh, that's encouraging, very good. So we'll be looking for a news flow from there.
Yeah.
Also, you made the Bite Zone discovery. Can you give us some more details on that?
Yeah, so the Bite Zone is one of the claim packages we staked is called Grad, and the Bite Zone is a zone within the Grad claims on one of these intrusions. That first day that we were on the ground there, our crews collected a number of rock samples and stream sediment samples, and 2 of the rock samples returned from that first day returned 92.4 grams per ton gold, or almost 3 ounces, and the second one was 15 grams, or about a half an ounce of gold. So immediately we knew, apart from the visual excitement that we had from being on the ground, the results we were getting back were quite phenomenal. And along with the gold in those samples, there was high bismuth and tellurium, which are 2 chemical indicators of a reduced intrusion system. And those numbers were off the scale compared to any other property that we looked at in the belt. And that's where the name BITE comes from. Bi is a chemical element bismuth, and Te is for tellurium.
There you go. Very good. Now, again, your CEO, Simon Ridgway, was speaking a while ago, and he said you should have a better idea as to the size of Grad once you analyze all the data from this season, essentially, right? So you could talk about that, and also the work that needs to be done and the timeline to possible drilling next year.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we got on the ground in early July, did our first batch of sampling, then claim staking. We went back once we got our results back and realized that we needed to do more. So we've essentially had less than half a season on it already. We did, of course, a lot more sampling at Bite in 2024. We did talus fine sampling in the area, and those talus fines, they're very similar to soils, but there's no soil development at high altitude there. They returned a 550 meter long anomaly that has high gold values and the associated bismuth and tellurium. So it's continuing to enhance our picture there, and it's showing also some size potential. There's a lot more work to be done in 2025, so our plans now going forward would be to extend some of the trenching that we've done there. I should also point out we did one small trench, 40 meters long, and it returned 38 meters of 1.7 grams per ton gold. So there, apart from getting the high assays that we got originally, we're now also seeing some size development there. So we got to continue to work on that size development and define targets for drilling, which will be happening in the latter half of the summer of 2025.
Lastly here, Scott, the gold sector is looking good right now, as we know. Gold near an all-time high. lot of companies with stories to tell. So how do you get the Rackla story out there in terms of the investment case for investors to know about it?
Yeah, we hit all of these events. We'll be there's two small conferences in the north that come up in November. Whitehorse Geoscience Forum in mid-November, and then Yellowknife Geoscience Forum, so we can talk to the local communities and build our relationships with the First Nations and the governments there. We'll also be at Roundup in Vancouver in January, PDAC in March, and various other investment conferences through that whole time. We've got a bit more data flow. All of our samples are in now. Sample results are in, but we got some other surveys that we've done, geophysical and photogrammetry surveys that we can help build the picture over the winter.
Right, and I'm sure we'll continue to do interviews with you at Red Cloud and webinars and so on. So lots of ways for investors to follow the story.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great stuff. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, thanks.